Because of that, Az-Zahabi, he compiled a book called Al-Kabair, about 70 types of big sins, yeah? And number 30 is this. It's corruption and taking bribery.
ولو أن أهل القرى آمنوا واتقوا لفتحنا عليهم بركات من السماء والأرض.
Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi
wabarakatuh.
MashaAllah. How are you, brothers?
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah, all praises due to Allah as He has allowed us to reunite all of us again for another discussion on the Barakah Effect. And ahlan wa sahlan to the viewers. Welcome to another episode of the Barakah Effect. And our topic for today is a very interesting one that has direct implications to each one of us more than we think, which is integrity in Islam, the key to preventing corruption. So this topic today was chosen by Brother Faisal. So to begin with the topic today, inshallah, Brother Faisal, would you mind to explain why did you choose this topic? Tafaddal, akhi.
Okay, mashallah. Jazakallah khairan, Brother Riza. So just to share some context on why I chose this topic. So the organization that I work for, recently they had a major court case, a very well-known one across the company involving one of our engineers. So he was slapped with over 40 corruption charges. So I think he was slapped with 30 corruptions. He pleaded not guilty. And then after that, another 40 overcharges some more. Subhanallah.
MashaAllah.
Is this the biggest case that has ever happened in your company, let's say? One of the biggest, perhaps?
Probably one of the most mainstream ones. Biggest,
okay.
Allah knows best. But yeah, one of the most mainstream ones. Very, very well known now.
Subhanallah. So it's widespread in the news and all this. It's public knowledge, right?
Yeah. It actually made the public perception on our organization to be quite bad. So it kind of hurt us on a very professional and personal level for the staff,
Allah understand.
It was actually quite striking because this person was not even a manager, senior manager. He wasn't even a leader. He was actually kind of like a junior engineer level, to that effect.
So if a junior executive can do that.
Yeah, that's the shocking part. Subhanallah. So what happened after this? Oh man. So what happened after this is our company CEO, he gave a very public unconditional support to the MACC. So MACC is the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission, and publicly declared that we fully support all efforts to combat corruption. So that means they're gonna weed out all this, even if it's their own staff doing this, they're gonna weed it all out. And I think subhanAllah, I think that was very inspiring. Like instead of covering up, they openly declared, okay, let's go. Right. We're with you on the war against corruption.
Right. So acknowledging it as a problem that needs to be solved rather than covering the tracks, huh?
Yeah. So that's really good. And because of that as well, other cases started popping up. So and one of the good things is I noticed a shift in the organization. So now people are being more open and transparent about raising the awareness about this thing. And then they are more committed, more transparent. Sometimes in the past, what tends to happen, probably even within the companies that you work with, sometimes cases happen, but people are like, you don't really know what happened, right? Yeah. Suddenly this guy just disappeared, right?
Disappeared. Yeah.
Have you had that kind of experience?
Yeah. I've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah, but now things are a lot more transparent and because they are very serious about this. So, mashallah. And I think there are a lot more engagements, a lot more awareness sessions. Having said that, I also have a lot of frustrations on how this topic is being approached. So what I see now is that typically when you look at the mainstream media and the corporate world, right, when they talk about corruption and bribery and integrity, even Muslims sometimes, they always kind of focus on the superficial aspects of corruption. You know what I mean? So so there's always for example, when you speak about integrity, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Bribery.
Right?
Money.
Yeah, money, bribery, right?
Money.
Yeah, taking the rights of others. False claims, but it's almost always bribes, right? False claim is level 2 knowledge,
Level 2,
Level 2.
So it kind of frustrates me. Yeah, probably level 5. Yeah, but so that's kind of frustrates me because it's every time integrity is don't take bribes. So if I don't take bribes, I'm a guy of a person of integrity. But in reality, it's so much more than that, right? And then,
Yes.
you know, when they
Yeah.
raise like awareness for these kinds of things, like, oh, about integrity, corruption, when they talk about the impact of corruption, they always talk about the superficial impact, you know, like, oh, it's bad for business, it will ruin a company's reputation. You know, the rights of the people, the resources are wasted on oppression, so you don't get to channel them. So they kind of look at all these stuff, which is no doubt it's very severe, yeah. But it kind of like, macam there's something missing, you know what I mean? Like, where is
Is
that
that it?
spiritual? Huh?
Right?
Yep,
Is that
yep.
it? For example,
Yeah.
right?
You're not touching deep,
That's right.
you know? Right?
Yes.
And
But they are going towards that, right? I think they are going towards that, the mechanism of deterrent to deter. Recently they start to go like behavioral approach, right? But still not there yet. But so
Mhm.
from something more tangible, like all this like tangible process,
Right.
deterrent. Then they introduce like behavioral approach. But I
Yeah.
think it's still missing. But I think it's a step going towards that way.
It's a step, yeah. So even sometimes when it comes to solutions, right, they kind of focus on things like enforcement. So that means it's like enforcement is still reactive, you know? You're not going towards the preventive kind of approach. It's going towards even like the deterrent, right? Like the raising the awareness. So what they'll do is sometimes they'll paint this kind of campaigns like, oh, this will affect your family. So they always touch the aspect of family. So if you get in prison, oh, nobody's going to take care of your children. So they always focus on the getting caught kind of thing. Where is the part where, you know, that stops you, you know, like that conscience to say that, okay, I'm not going to go even cross that line. You know what I mean? And when we talk about solutions, they talk about whistleblowing. That means it's already done. You just have to play your part to call them out. You know, and then you have things like lifestyle audit, right? Have you heard of this lifestyle audit? So they'll go things like they'll check everybody, and if they see that you're living beyond your means, so if your paycheck's this much, but somehow, you know, the houses and the cars and the stuff that you have is showing this much, something is wrong,
Okay.
right?
All right.
Oh,
But-
first time.
Oh, first time you heard this?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is like called lifestyle
Oh,
audit.
that's good.
Yeah, that's good. At the same time, that will only happen if you've taken a lot, right?
Yeah.
So what happened to all this small corruption? Take 500 ringgit. You cannot change your lifestyle with 500, 1,000, 20,000, right?
Yes.
So that means they're taking like very severe symptoms already. So it's still a very kind of reactive kind of approach. So these are the kind of like the mainstream kind of strategies lah. So what my frustration is that the role of religion is always almost completely absent sometimes. In fact, there's one institute that tries to raise the awareness on integrity. They actually deliberately avoid this because of sensitive issues. But the way I see it is like, if you don't touch them deep in terms of their personal principles, the big why of why you even live, right? Your purpose of life. If you don't go towards this and how that's going to affect your end success in the hereafter, how are you really going to institute sustainable change? You know what I mean?
Yep.
True. Yeah.
So that's
True,
why I
because
feel
otherwise, sorry, okay, for interrupting.
Yeah.
Otherwise, everyone will just focus on the reactive things, and you say like people who practice corruption will say, "Oh, as long as I can get away with it and not get caught, that means I'm fine," you know. But it's not about really addressing the root cause of why people go into corruption and really weeding it out from the source, right?
Yeah.
You're encouraging more noble, more creative ways to do corruption.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And actually, it can also be kind of like a witch hunt. You know that term, right? Witch hunt. It's like you're always just looking for faults and you're just going to make these sins more public. When we know, right, in Islam, it's not good to make things public, right? Allah hates it when you publicize sins, right? And that's what people are doing, right? To weed it out. On one hand, it's kind of to punish those wrongdoers, which we can see why. But on the other hand, also it's causing a lot of harm, right? So there has to be another more preventive, sustainable solution. So actually, the key is in Islam. The key is in our own personal principles, our own religion, our own accountability with Allah. So that's why I feel like we should speak about this. And when you talk about like integrity, for example, right? People we spoke about this. People always emphasize like, don't take bribes. Okay, yes, that is one big aspect. Fine. But if you think about integrity in Islam, it's deeper than that, right? Being consistent in your akhlaq is also part of integrity, right? Keeping steady to your principles, even if you get pressured or, you know, in times of adversity or when temptations come in, that's part of integrity, right?
Yes.
Doing the right thing, even if it's unpopular, even if people are going to attack you or insult you, but you know that's the right thing to do in the Quran and Sunnah, that's also part of integrity, right? So actually, it's a lot deeper than that. And I feel like, people are not focusing on this real meat. This is the kind of stuff we should be focusing on. So that's why I chose this topic.
Mashallah. Actually, also just to add to that, the result of having the reactive solutions that is implemented there. I mean, it's good, but then the result of that is a lot of us from our positions, we always point the fingers on the wrongdoers, that the one who are being exposed in
Yes.
public, and say, oh, they're the wrongdoers, but we lack introspective action when it comes to ourselves.
That's a good point.
In my workplace, I even see this from my colleagues sometimes, and they say to the contractors, oh, bila nak ajak makan, when are you gonna treat us to dinner
Right.
or lunch? I mean, and then the contractor is stuck between a rock and a hard place. You wanna be friendly and make things smooth, so they have to be let's say beyond what they need to do, or giving out things that shouldn't be given. So that's a very symptomatic level case in what I see, especially sometimes in the workplace. The same people who point the fingers of blame to the politicians, perhaps in wrongdoing, say just give small change to perhaps authorities when they are caught in trouble to get out of that.
Yeah, they
So-
call it facilitation fees. That's a term
Facilitation
for it.
fees.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the
And
official
even
term.
sometimes in projects, it becomes part of the project cost. Subhanallah.
Oh,
That's-
wow.
that's-
Part of the budgeting, huh?
Subhanallah.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
because
That's an item,
this
huh?
is
Oh, subhanallah.
it's an item, because without this, your project is not going to go smoothly as it would, because some authority will be blocking your progress.
Wow.
Subhanallah. So it is very symptomatic, and it's a very wide societal problem. And it's even deeper than that. So what Brother Faisal mentioned was very good, mashallah, that the real solution is to address our principles, and the principles lie in our deen, in Islam. And just to give an example, right, amazing story about one of the caliphs of our pious predecessors, Umar bin Abdul Aziz. He once is just such an exemplary leader from our ummah, from the past ummah, that under his leadership, the policies of the Islamic government practice in the first four caliphs, Khulafa ar-Rashidin, were revived. And one of the things that, mashallah, impresses me, that when he narrated his story to his son, actually, the story of how he told his son, he said, remember, my son, the lamp that I'm using while I'm working belongs to the government, and the gas lamp was bought by the government with the government funds. So if there is a matter personal that you wish to discuss, it's a family matter, so I will switch off this lamp, because doesn't belong to us, it belongs to government. Mashallah, to that level of detail,
There you
integrity to the personal life. And in that situation, who would even cross their mind, how you are using the company's property and for your personal purposes? Like, what's wrong with that?
Yeah,
Like,
what's a bit of oil gonna change,
What's
right?
wrong with
The
Yeah.
country
I
is
think-
not gonna be any poorer
That's right.
just because I burn a bit of oil for personal conversation. Come on, man.
and actually, the story started. I think I remember a bit longer of a version of that story was that the son waited for his father
Oh,
since
yeah,
day,
that's right.
but the father was busy entertaining official matters, so he waited
Yeah.
until night. He said, "Okay, father, now it's my turn. Okay,
Oh,
so tell me now,
mashallah.
is this a matter of the state, or is it a matter of our family?" Just a matter of our
Oh.
family. Okay, then he switched off the lights.
Mashallah, mashallah.
Wow, mashallah.
So thereabouts, you can see
So the equivalent to that
representation.
is using your company laptop to purchase personal
Ah.
tickets, for example, right? Going on Asia.
Correct.
Looks very harmless, right?
Right, like something that you need to print. Oh, why not use the office
Companies
printer?
printer, yeah.
One fish only mah.
So that's exactly how what Brother Faisal mentioned, that the solution to the problem is addressing the principles, and our deen, our religion, Islam, covers the whole aspects, not just in terms of ibadah. I mean, this is also part of ibadah, because you are always feeling that you are being watched by Allah, muraqabah, right? Being watched by Allah in every action that you do, to the point that everything that you will do now will be accountable in the akhirah. So this is, subhanAllah, this is an amazing story that I just wanted to point out here, which really relates to us in whatever actions that we do. So yeah, this is why the religion is important, and to address corruption as well.
Okay.
So on the topic of why should we discuss this topic, right? On the subject corruption and integrity, and as the brothers mentioned that when we talk about corruption, mainly here in Malaysia, the first thing that comes to mind is bribery, right? Bribery.
Yeah.
But it has become so common in the community and in the workplace, in corporate world, so on and so forth. Even in schools, in educational institutions, it's all become so common that people forgot that bribery is one of the things that Allah Subhanahu wa Taala curses. So let that sink. The meaning of curse in Islam is to remove Allah's mercy from a thing or someone. So imagine if Allah Subhanahu wa Taala He says that a person will only come into Jannah with His mercy, said then what does that make people who partake in all these things that makes them become farther and farther away from Allah's mercy, Subhanallah. So I just want to make like a short anecdote or something like this. Okay, all of us here, or most of us here, the majority of us here, 4 out of 5 guys, we have been to for Umrah and for Hajj, right? Brother Reza, all of you have been going for Umrah. So while I was there, as a mutawif meaning the tour guide, I worked as a tour guide for the Jama'ah, like the group of people who come to Medina. So I worked as a tour guide for them for about a year, more than a year. So one thing that I notice the most that is that their behavior changes when once they lay their foot on in Medina and in Mecca. Why? So lo and behold, they are actually scared when they first listen to this hadith, because the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Man ahdatha fiha hadathan," right? "Aw awa muhdithan, fa alayhi la'natullahi wal malaikati wan nasi ajma'in." What did the Prophet say? The Prophet ﷺ, he said, whoever sins, okay, meaning major sins, whoever does major sins, including innovations in the prohibited lands, which is the Haramain, which is Makkah and Medina. As Muslims, we know that Makkah and Medina, there are specific areas that is called the Haram area, right? In which we can't do certain things, right? So those who sin in those areas, right, Allah Subhanahu wa Taala will curse them, and even the one who covers for the person who sinned, right, he will also receive the same curse. Wal-iyadhu billah. Right? Upon him is the curse of Allah and the angels and all the people. Subhanallah. So this is the reason why that many people, like they will say stuff like, okay, watch your attitude, don't say nonsense, don't in bahasa Melayu they say jangan terlepas cakap, right? Don't all these things, right?
They're
So
also
mind your
wary of
words.
the instant punishment that will perhaps come if
yes,
they encourage.
yes,
they're worried
yeah,
about that as well, right? So this is part of
exactly.
it.
And just to add onto that, I remembered when I was a child, I was I don't know what I was feeding my mind with. There was this book called the 1001 Weird Tales from the Haramain, right? So I was reading the book. I saw one of the stories that were mentioned in there was that a person he came to Makkah, and with his son couldn't look at the Kaaba, because whenever he looked at the Kaaba, it is as if the Kaaba, became like a cube, like a dice, and wanted to roll on top of him. So he was really scared. So this was the stories, and it sort of got stuck in my head. So I can sympathize. I can empathize with how these people, feel, right? So that's just a side story, but the gist of this whole thing is that there is a sense of fear when it comes to going to these lands, right? The fear of doing sins, correct? But when it comes, so here's the catch. The Prophet ﷺ, like I said, announced that Allah Subhanahu wa Taala cursed people who engage in a myriad of other sins. Among them is those who bribe and receive bribery. So where's this fear? Where's this fear that is sort of seemingly non-existent in our hearts, right? So where is it? So we have to ask ourselves why is there sort of like an imbalance when it comes to these different sins, right? So we have to ask ourselves, is it because the lack of knowledge, or perhaps we have to, maybe our taqwa is lacking, Okay, so we have to really ask ourselves and start to make the steps, take the steps to better ourselves, inshallah.
Yeah, so the point is both have the same punishment. When you sin in
Yeah.
the haram, you'll get the curse of Allah. But when you take bribes or receive bribes, you also get the same punishment. But when it comes to the first one, you're very, very mindful, you're very, very scared. But when it comes to the second one, it comes to taking bribes, it's okay lah. As long as you don't get caught, no problem lah. You know,
Yeah.
people have this
Yeah.
kind of very lackadaisical kind of attitude.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And
So
by
if
the
you
way,
really have taqwa, right? If you're really doing it because you're worried to get the punishment of Allah, getting deprived from the mercy of Allah, then the same level of fear should also be on taking or receiving bribes or giving bribes.
Sahih. Sahih.
Exactly.
100% true. So by the way, the hadith is it has a different riwayah, but one of the hadith says la'natullahi ala ar-rashi wal murtashi. Allah's curse is upon those who give bribes and takes the bribe, right? And it's recorded in even in Al-Bukhari and in Sunan Ibn Majah and Ahmad, so on. So you can actually look into these books of ahadith, inshallah. You will find it there.
Yeah, I think the real world context also that we understand this hadith, as Shami highlighted, is that nobody's deeds is enough to earn them to paradise.
Yep.
Anyone, no matter how long you do tahajjud, no matter how much Quran you recite, it will never be enough unless Allah gives His mercy. So even the companions, right? When they heard this, oh, really? Not even you, Ya Rasulullah? Which is a very intelligent question, right? Because Rasulullah SAW, his deeds was the best, right? They knew how his ibadah was. This is like, I can never do this, right? That kind of perception, right? So they asked immediately, oh, even you, Ya Rasulullah? Even me, unless Allah envelopes me in His mercy. So if you think about it, this deed, right, can deprive you from that mercy. That ticket to Jannah is gone. So that's, if you put it in that context, you say, oh, now this is severe, yeah? This is going to stop you from attaining success, yeah? And it's not a short time, yeah? So yeah, that's the kind of, because also we want to highlight this because sometimes there's a mindset to say that, yeah, I take bribes, but I also give a lot of charity. I also go for Umrah. That doesn't work that way, yeah? You're depriving from mercy of Allah, huh? So you cannot justify that, oh, you're still doing good deeds, and it's, oh no, you're getting deprived from mercy of Allah. This is very serious, yeah? Maybe all of those things will be in vain. So I think that's the message that we want to put the context in.
Yeah, maybe I just want to elaborate because since Brother Faisal, Brother Shami brought in that mashallah, that hadith about the curse of Allah will be the one who give and receive bribe. Yeah, subhanallah, the hadith contains the word curse. So Ibn Salah, one of the big hadith scholars in the past, yeah, he mentioned that one of the criteria to define a sin as a major sin is if the curse of Allah is on to those who does that. Yeah.
Okay.
And because of that, Az-Zahabi, he compiled a book called Al-Kabair, about 70 types of big sins. Yeah. And number 30 is this. It's corruption and taking bribery. Yep. So, and why? And I'm saying it's just a big sin. What's the matter, man? At least I don't do shirk. Let me tell you this, yeah. If you search into Surah An-Nisa, verse 31, yeah, Allah said that if you able to abstain yourself from major sins, yep, then Allah will definitely forgive all your sins, and Allah will put you into the best of place, which is Jannah. And then Al-Dhahabi elaborated on this ayah, saying that this is clear evidence that for anybody to be guaranteed a place in paradise is to abstain from major sins. And the vice versa of that is, if you do not abstain from major sins, then you are exposed. You are exposed at the mercy of Allah to be doomed in hellfire if Allah doesn't forgive you. So that's the mindset, yeah. And why we should take bribery, corruption as something very serious, yeah. So because it's a major sin, yeah.
Subhanallah. So now we can imagine, we can digest the impact or the magnitude of this sin, which some people just does it without even thinking, subhanallah. But then again, also I'd like to touch also on the definition of corruption and also extension to integrity. To different people, perhaps it means different things. So perhaps some of the brothers can enlighten us on what is defined as corruption.
Yeah, sure. Of course, we need to understand the the meaning of the term that we are discussing, we're basing this whole podcast on, right? So we're talking about corruption. Corruption in Arabic is fasad. Fasad. We have only when we read the Quran, we've heard of this the word, in a different form, in one form or another, right? For example, the word fasad is mentioned in Al-Baqarah when Allah Subhanahu wa Taala is mentioning the hypocrites, for example, right? إذا قيل لهم لا تفسدوا في الأرض قالوا إنما نحن مصلحون, right? تفسدوا. So the word fasad is there. Right? So the meaning of fasad, to put it plainly, is the opposite of the state of being upright or to be being sound. So when you are upright, when you are righteous, the direct opposite of that is fasad. So imagine you see someone who is, mashallah, he's holding on firmly on the Sunnah, the Quran and Sunnah. He's practicing. So the one who is also a Muslim, but he's not practicing, he's not at all, he's far from the Quran and Sunnah. He is the one who has fasad in him. He's the mufsid guy, right? So this is the meaning of fasad in terms of language. Okay, but the scholars, they say fasad can also, specifically, it means exiting or staying away from moderation or the middle path. So this is interesting because when we talk about Islam, right, it is all about the middle path, right? It's all about the straight path, the path of moderation, the straight path, which will lead to ultimate success. Okay, that is why 17 times a day at least we recite the ayah, ihdinas siratal mustaqim. Ya Allah, guide us to the straight path, right? Anything that Allah has set upon the straight path is considered to be moderate and will be a means for us to attain His mercy. And anything that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has set to be outside of the middle path, right, is considered to be extreme and a means that can earn Allah's displeasure. Okay, so this is very important for us to understand. Okay, fasad is very general, as you can see. It's a general term. It means every single thing that is that is opposing to the middle path is fasad. Okay, including zulm, right? Or zulm is how do you say this in
Oppression.
oppression? Yes. Oppression is a form of fasad. Okay, it falls under fasad as well. Hypocrisy is fasad. Bribery is fasad. Okay, so all of these things are fasad. Okay, so that's simply put it is, that is what fasad is.
Yeah, but I think
in
The
terms of
I can
wider
add to that.
definition of that,
Yeah,
right?
if we want to narrow it down slightly a bit more,
Yeah.
I think dhulm is a bit more in line with the theme of the discussion because
Yes,
dhulm
correct.
normally, dhulm
Yeah.
basically is the opposite of adl, right? Means you
Yeah.
don't put things in the right place. But
Yes.
normally when people discuss the conversations, like when we say a person is a zalim, an oppressor, it usually means oppressing other people. So there are
So-
different types of oppression, but generally speaking, when it comes to the corruption in the context of bribery and so on, it's usually involving taking rights of others, things that don't belong to you, right? So like the example that Reza said from Omar ibn Abdul Aziz, right? So it's taking rights of the nation's property that doesn't belong to you. So likewise, bribery is taking something that doesn't belong to you, but you're maybe manipulating the position that you have, the authority that you have, to take it for your own personal gratification. So that's a form of dhulm. Yeah. So that's how we kind of, just in case people get so we can compartmentalize the theme of dhulm in this discussion.
It's very nice that definitions brought by the brothers. Like, I just want to, but there's a few, even the scholars in the past, even after they brought nice definition, but something that impressed me is the definition brought by the Ministry of Islamic Affairs of Kuwait, and they managed to simplify the definition to something quite simple. They say that like corruption, bribery is any gift with the purpose of falsifying the truth or declaring a falsehood as the truth. Whether you falsify something or you declare something false as truth, that's bribe. Yeah, and MBCC has their own definition, which says that a bribe is about receiving or giving something as a payment to motivate an individual to do or not to do something related to your official work. So let it be that bribe can be in the form of money, gift, bonus, vote, service, position, as well as discount. So that's the definition by MCC is in line with the laws of Malaysia Section 3A. It's about so MCC simplified the laws of Malaysian statement, which is a lawyer's language, into something more layman.
Inshallah. Very good, inshallah. I think also in all of the definitions there, it all also boils down to one word here as well, as meaning from our title as well. It's integrity, right? No matter when you are in being watched by others or you are by yourself, you are always acting consistent to a certain set of principles, which are the principles of being fair and not oppressing others or misusing your position for something other than what it's intended to. So perhaps moving on to the next section, inshallah, we would like to discuss in terms of integrity, right? So what's the big deal behind integrity? What are its importances and the different aspects of integrity which are often neglected by us, or maybe we don't really have a good understanding or let's say good handle of it. So why is integrity such a big deal?
I'll start with the definitions first. So how do we define what is integrity in the first place? So normally if you ask people, right, what is integrity? What's the common definition that you guys will hear?
Integrity is doing the right thing,
Doing the right thing. Okay.
even when no one is watching.
Right.
That's the famous
yeah.
one.
That's the famous one, right? Doing the
Yeah,
right
yeah.
thing even when no one is watching. So I think
Yeah.
that's the simple way of the layman way of understanding it, right?
Yes, yes.
But okay, if we look at the dictionary definition, so if you look at Merriam-Webster, so it says, okay, I like this definition because I think it's a little bit more relatable, especially when you relate it back to, for example, Islamic principles. So the definition is adherence to moral and ethical principles, the soundness of moral character. So what it means is the more integrity you have, the more consistent you are with upholding your values. Does that resonate with you better?
Yep.
Yes,
Right.
So if
Yep.
your values are Quran and Sunnah, if your values as a Muslim, the more consistent you are, this is a person of integrity. So if you define it that way, like Shami's definition of fasad makes more sense now. Oh, if you keep on committing sins, you're not really holding true to your principles, right? So that's of course now, okay, why do people always relate bribery and with integrity? Because the principle of honesty, every religion subscribes to this, right? In the world. Every religion will tell you, even not even without religion per se, right? Every country in the world recognizes honesty as a virtue. So that's why when you are not honest, it's a compromise to the principles. So another definition in the Merriam-Webster also, it says that the state of being whole, like entire or undiminished, that means it's solid, right? It's sound or unpaired, it's in good condition. So when we talk about like in the engineering industry, right? Okay, we are most of us engineer here, right?
Okay.
We have this thing called asset integrity, right? How do you relate
Yes.
asset integrity with like not taking bribes? So when you talk about asset integrity, so you talk about the integrity of a ship, for example, right? So if you say that the integrity of the ship's hull is sound, what does that imply?
It's reliable. It's robust. It's fit for purpose. Functional.
There you go, right?
Fit for
Reliable,
purpose, yeah.
functional, right? It doesn't buckle under pressure. It's not cracking, right?
Yes.
So it's the same thing as human beings, right? Being reliable, right? You have the trust, and then you don't breach that trust. Just like how the ship, you're supposed to contain the people inside the ship. You don't, you don't let in some water, like. Sort of like that. So if you frame it this way, like, I can see now. So the problem about bribes is like, if you try to visualize it, it's like, that ship here is kind of like letting a little bit of stuff in that's not supposed to be there. You see what I mean? Yeah. So that's my layman way of understanding integrity lah in the context.
Nice.
Context of corruption.
Inshallah. And also this aspect of integrity, right? It's also sometimes it's not seen the impact, but it also has to do a lot with the barakah in our property. For example, if someone is not acting in accordance with the principles of fairness and adl, and then Allah may take away the barakah from the livelihood of such person, similar to what the hadith mentioned before, taken away from the mercy of Allah. It's also taking away the barakah in the property or the livelihood of the person. So the person might even have a lot of tangible wealth, for example. But then that wealth doesn't bring happiness to that person, it's not lasting, it's not it always disappears quickly, and it's not lasting. So that's something to think about in terms of integrity as well, that it may affect the barakah in a person's life, that if it's not practiced at all times, meaning the integrity is not there, the taqwa of Allah is not there, then there's a risk to that person that the barakah in their livelihood is taken away as well. And that's really something that you don't really want. Similar to what Brother Shahmi mentioned, taken away from the mercy of Allah. This is something that perhaps people don't really digest it properly, but it's something, such a great thing, that it's more important than what short-term gains that you stand to have when corruption is practiced. So this is one aspect as well, that integrity has a direct relation to the barakah in the property and the lives.
Yeah, we can tie this back to the layman definition as well, right? Like doing the right thing when nobody's watching. So the idea about the consequences of corruption, which is you are deprived from the barakah and you get the curse of Allah. May Allah protect all of us, right? These things, like it's regardless if people catch you or not, right? So you're still doing that regardless of whether nobody's watching or MACC or what. No, you're supposed to do this because this is your principle in life. It's your objective and your purpose in life.
I would like to share some of the points actually written by Syed Hussein Alatas. He brought like a few points on, like, you say, what are the ill effect of corruption in a society. Yeah, so talk about it destroys the country's justice system. You build a very unskilled and uncompetitive workforce and society. You raise self-absorbed people, which is like selfish, materialistic, egoistic, narcissistic people, in your society. You have increase in management costs. Yep. You have the management process becomes slow and very chaotic, and we've seen that impact firsthand.
Yeah.
People actually become more evil. They are more self-centered. And the last one he gave.
Let's relate that one. Sorry, I mean, just to add one.
Go ahead.
People become more evil. So if you want to relate it back to this way, this is the common materialistic perspective. If you stick to the rules, you will lose out. You know what I mean? If you don't pay the facilitation fees, you have to wait God knows how long, right? That's the kind of words that people say, right? And if you don't take this, hey, come on, everybody's doing it except you. Keep up, man. And then suddenly the whole gang, will gang up from that guy, right?
Indeed. Mashallah.
I've heard this said, you will never succeed if you don't participate in it. Subhanallah, that's
if you don't follow the process,
Yeah.
If you choose to go against the process,
don't toe the line, right?
Yeah.
So that means it makes doing the good thing very, very difficult. So it becomes the haram becomes convenient and easy. So that's why the evil starts to spread because the good becomes so difficult.
Mashallah.
Mashallah.
And I think corruption also makes the the unbalanced distribution of wealth amongst the society, and it propagates destruction of environment and natural resources, and inflate cost of goods and services. So inflation is going to be an issue as well. So these are some worldly ill effects of corruption.
Subhanallah. That's
And then from the worldly point of view, right? Actually, what happens is it erodes the trust on a global scale. So, for example, like say a company, right? So somebody gets caught, right? And then eventually people will start to have a negative perception on the company, which is not right, right? They start to stereotype, oh, everybody in those guys are in that company is crooks. It's not fair, right?
Yeah.
But that's what happens. The honest and upright people, the sincere people there, now they get victimized. They get this stereotype because of these few crooks, right? They are the ones who get the negative impact now. So it's bad for the society, the community that they are affected now.
Even for business, I think like nowadays, certain trade unions, they impose a lot of restriction. If you got caught once as an organization, it makes it difficult to get more business opportunity in the future. And then even international oil companies have it's at wrong to this, and they see business is very slow in the next few years after being caught.
Okay. Also, if I may add, I don't think I want to spend too much time on this, but when I really give it some thought, right, there's a lot of layers to integrity that people never speak about. But maybe this is going slightly out of our theme about bribery and corruption. But when we talk about integrity in Islam, right, if you want to be a person of integrity, this number one means that you fulfill your obligations, you fulfill your how to say, your commitments, right? So that's a part of integrity. And for example, when it comes to think about like working with ihsan, right? So you worship Allah as if you see Him, and if you're not, then knows that He sees you. That means you do your best, right? You really give it your best 100%. But how many of us sometimes we hear this, right? Allah, if I work so hard, it's not like the boss will notice also. You know, have you heard that kind of thing?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yep,
yes,
yep.
yes.
You're not. That means you're not acting in line with your principles of ihsan. You're doing it just because you want to get promoted. I see now.
Yes, yes, yes.
Very subtle things, right? Yeah. So even
mashallah.
some things like, for example, like this is a very common one, and this is very difficult, I would say, but this needs to be said. If you know something is wrong right in front of your eyes, you know for a fact that if you don't speak up, that oppression or that wrongdoing will continue, right? But you choose to keep quiet because you don't want to rock the boat, right? You don't want to be labeled as a goody two shoes or a, the noisemaker, or like a stir the pot kind of thing, right? A rebel, right?
Yeah.
So you keep quiet. That's also a problem of integrity, right? How many of
Mm.
us are guilty of this, right? So
Yeah.
a lot of things like that. How many of us, like, you see everybody is doing one thing, you know it's against the standard, but it becomes the norm. You might be the one of the few who knows, but you're like,
We always do it like this way, right?
yeah, that's the way it's done, right?
Everybody does it.
Everybody
Why
does it,
change
right?
now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's okay lah. I don't want to say anything lah. That's a problem in integrity, right?
Yes.
So, and then for example, if you like have a preference to somebody because of your contact with the person, your relationship with the person, like the idea about nepotism, right? Cronism, nepotism, right? People don't speak about this, when you talk about integrity. You want to talk about bribes. What happened to this personal favors? Same thing, right?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So actually, it's a very, very big thing. And I think one thing to relate, for example, right, one thing that a hadith that resonates with me a lot, for example, is there's one man in the lifetime of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, there was a noble lady who was caught stealing, and then people were like, no lah, she's a noble lady, don't cut her hand, no. And then people didn't want her to get punished because she was well liked among the society. So some of the companions were like, hey, talk to Usama. So Usama, for the context, is like, he's sort of like the grandchild of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. He's the son of Zaid, and Zaid at one time was known as the adopted child of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, right? So the Prophet so the companions knew he had a soft spot for Usama bin Zaid. So, hey, Usama, you go talk to Rasulullah lah, give chance to this lady. And then when Usama went, and then the Prophet ﷺ got very angry. He said that the people before you were destroyed because when a commoner amongst them would steal, they would cut their hands. But when a noble person would steal, that person will be let go, not be punished. And then he said, by Allah, I can't remember the exact words, but he swore that even if Fatima, the daughter of Muhammad, were caught stealing, that I would cut off her hand. That's what he said. That's integrity, right?
It's the
Can you-
utmost example of integrity.
Yeah, utmost example of integrity, right? That means you be fair to everyone, even if it's your own family members. That's what Allah says in the Quran, right? Be just, even it's to your nearest of kindred. How many of us can do that? Sometimes when it comes to our own family members, our own flesh and blood, but when it comes to justice, family.
Family.
So actually, integrity is huge. Actually, it's a very, very big topic. So, mashallah, I just want to mention these things. And for example, also like when it comes to holding true to your principles. So you might, for example, being steadfast in that, right? So sometimes you might go through phases in life, and sometimes when you go through certain phases, you start to compromise a little bit in different conditions, right? Maybe you go into a place where upholding the halal might be a bit more challenging, so you begin to like, it's okay lah, it's difficult lah, rukhsah, we make up fake excuses, right? To let us off the hook. Right. So anyway, these are all stuff that I was thinking about. Hey, wow, actually integrity is huge. Yeah, I mean it's a very, very big thing, but we don't have time to go through all of them. But yeah, just to raise the awareness, just to expand our minds a bit more, that wow, integrity, holding on to principles, it's a big deal. It's a very comprehensive.
MashaAllah. Well put, Faisal. So I think the lesson here is for each of us as well to reflect on our own lives. How are how are we practicing integrity in our lives, you know?
Yeah.
So the one who is reflecting on their actions is, inshallah, they will be the successful ones. So moving on, inshallah, in regards to how we should combat corruption and reinforce integrity in our lives, you know, what are some of the strategies that we can, inshallah, inculcate in our lives to be better at combating corruption and reinforcing integrity? So any of the brothers wanna
Can I
share
start
some
on
points?
this?
Yeah.
Because
Go
I
ahead, Akhi.
like to start on remedial mitigation action with education. I think that's crux to a lot of society.
Education.
And same to this issue, yeah. People comes with the false notion that our religion doesn't really teach in bribery, corruption extensively, but that's wrong. That's false, yeah. There's evidence. There's two evidence that we can give to them. Number one, for instance, if you look into all fake books, basic fake books, not the big ones. Like in the Mazhab Shafi, there's two books, basic Matan Abi Shuja and Al Yaquts. After they finish discussing the five acts of worship in Rukun Islam, yep, the sixth matter is about your sustenance. They talk about what is halal to get and what's lawful and what's unlawful. They talk about riba. They talk about rishwah, bribery, on the sixth topic. But unfortunately, we don't talk. We don't discuss about that often. We finish after Hajj. That's it. We finish after we learn about Haji. That's it. But after that, if you look further, that's this next topic, which is in your business transaction. Yeah. And also like big famous books, even in Malaysia, they some mosques they discuss about like Al Kabair. They talk about the dangers of corruptions or bribery in it. Yeah, not just taking it in terms of riba, in terms of your haram sustenance, but also in the aspect of corruption. So meaning in the religion itself, this topic is actually it's looked into quite detail and it's and to a certain point, people say business transaction is part of fardu ain in every Muslim because you will never run away from business dealings, whether in your lifetime. Yeah. So
This is part
has
of
to
being
pay
human,
attention.
right?
That's right. Education. If we have missed the boat, like myself, no problem. We have our children, our nephew, our nieces, get them started. Yeah. It's a lifelong journey. Yeah. Don't waste it.
Not only that, you get started on a boat right now. Find a boat.
Yeah. You hang on the
You
boat.
missed the
You
boat.
hang
Okay,
on the
fine. That was
Find your
20 years
boat.
ago. Whatever. Now you get on the boat, right?
hang on the paddles.
The reason I say that, I mean, is because I always hear people say, it's okay lah, my children lah. I'm too late already. I'm too old. Come on lah, bro. Don't do that lah. Allah knows lah.
Yeah.
Indeed, Brother Faisal, that's right. Yeah.
Inshallah.
Yeah.
I think that's good that I may highlight that we need to have education on that one, right? And then we also need to educate our child. Our child. I remember as a kid, right? I used to ask my father about how come your friends, I mean his colleagues are in his team, in same department, same position, same company, but they live more lavish life than ours. They have a big house, better cars, going on a holiday out of the country. But I always say, how come we can do that? I asked my father. So actually, I was asking out of curiosity, not like I don't like my life, right? I'm not asking
You're not
like that.
demanding,
Yeah. And then he answered me with a statement that I don't understand at the time, because you see, the answer he said, he said, one day when you're working, no matter how low your income is, no matter how hard your life is, never get money from with the wrong way. I was like, He say, have sabar, we won't live in this world that long. But then, and now, when I'm working, right, we have some people, we are in the same position. I think we have the same level, same salary. Same salary, but they live in lavish life. That's why I was shocked when brother Faisal tell that we have this lifestyle audit, right?
Lifestyle audit, yeah.
Okay.
That really resonated with me. Early education, and we need for ourselves, we need to have sabar to in this life.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
So he was
Brother
implying.
Fazli's story triggers me another story, man. MashaAllah, I gotta share this.
Okay, let's go.
You know,
Inshallah.
scholars, yeah, when they want to talk about the brilliance of Imam Bukhari, yeah, they talk about brilliance. You can say like 1,000 things about Imam Bukhari brilliance. Like he's hardworking, he spent a great deal of time memorizing, writing hadith. He got good teachers. His mother was a lot of things. But scholar will never discount this fact. He said one of the reason why Imam Bukhari was a genius was because his father, who was also an alim, who died when he was still an infant, made sure that every single dirham and dinar that he had for his family was all halal, and none of them not even haram. None of them came from shubhat sources.
Oh, doubtful sources.
Doubtful sources.
Masya-
So some ulama attribute that characteristic of Imam Bukhari's father to his brilliance and genius.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
So that's the barakah right there, right?
Indeed,
In different ways.
Who say doesn't integrity doesn't pay, that it pays.
It does.
Inshallah.
Yeah.
So
Inshallah.
if I may add to Amar's point, is very I truly agree as well that education should be the first and the topmost priority for us in terms of how should we combat corruption, especially for ourselves who have been seeing all these things happening around, and for also for our children, for their future's sake, right? We need to educate them. And so one of the things that we need to educate as well is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he has made this earth, a place for us to find provisions, right? هو الذي جعل لكم الأرض ذلولا فامشوا في مناكبها in Surah Al-Mulk. But the thing is, Allah has made the provisions on earth a test, right? There are provisions that we get that is permissible, and there are those that are non-permissible, impermissible, right? So we have to teach our children that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is good, and He only loves goodness. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Ya ayuhan nas, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said in a hadith, right? Inna Allah tayyibun la yakbalu illa tayyiban. Right? Indeed, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is good, and He will not accept anything that is not good. He will only accept goodness, right? And in the same hadith, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he says about a person who came, right? Said, ثم ذكر الرجل يطيل السفر, a person who has been has been a musafir, has been a wayfarer for a long time, and then he looks really tired and so on and so forth, disheveled, right? يمد يديه إلى السماء, and he is putting his hands into the sky, asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for something. He said, Ya Rab, Ya Rab, Ya Allah, he said, wa mat'amuhu haram, right? Wa mat'amuhu wa mashrabuhu haram, wa ghudhiya bil haram, right? Fa anna yustajabu lidhalik. So, and then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned something important. He said that person who raised his hands to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is fa inni qarib, Allah says, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, fa inni qarib ujibu da'wat ad-da'i idha da'an. I am near and I answer, right? Those who ask for, who supplicate to me, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, knowing that. But his food, this person who raised his hands, his food is from the haram sources, and his drinks are from the haram sources, and also his clothing are from the haram sources. The last thing the Prophet said, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, فَأَنَّ يُسْتَجَابُ لِذَلِكَ. How can Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reply to him, right? So that means when the moment when we are lackadaisical, right? We don't care from where our sustenance come from corruption, this, corruption that, bribery this, bribery that, right? All we know is that, okay, I have something to sustain myself and my family, right? There is that is the moment when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reject our du'as. Okay, that is very dangerous. That is very dangerous.
Yeah,
So
so that's
all of
one of the
this-
ways where, like Reza mentioned just now, your barakah
Yeah.
is being snatched.
Sah,
Your bank account might show it, but all this time
Yep.
you've been making dua and Allah just doesn't listen to your dua. So that's one way
Sahih,
that
subhanallah.
life.
Sahih. So I think this is important to be a part of, an integral part of our education as well as our children's education, right?
Yeah.
Because we want to connect that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He only accepts goodness. He gives good, and He only accepts good. So inshallah, in the future, for us as well, but also for our children, for the future generation, inshallah they have the tools to recognize, okay,
this might be I smell some sort of a corruption here. So inshallah, by the will of Allah and by Allah's mercy, he can take care of himself, inshallah.
Mashallah.
So education.
You know,
Yeah,
one
actually,
thing
to
like,
me, kan, to me, the
Go, go, go.
most important thing, right, when it comes to the how, right, is to instill ourselves the sense of accountability on Yawm al-Qiyamah. You see,
inshallah.
Sah.
the first thing, right, that we
Brilliant.
need to educate ourselves, everyone, is this. If you take bribes, if you do any oppression, any small atom's weight of corruption, you will get caught. The question is whether it's in this world or the next.
Yes.
Sahih.
If
Subhanallah.
MACC doesn't catch you, Allah will catch you. That's the most
Subhanallah.
important point. If you cannot drill this in your mind, then forget about it. You're gonna find ways to get out of it. So this is the most important thing, iman in Yawmul Qiyamah. So that's why we always have to remind ourselves. For example, in ayah like Surah Baqarah, right? Wattaqu yawman turja'una fi ila Allah. Fear the day that you return to Allah. Thumma tuwaffa kullu nafsin ma kasabat wa hum la yudhlamun. Everyone will get everything that he earned, and nobody will be oppressed. You oppressed, but on that day, nobody's gonna get oppressed. If you can drill this concept, just this one thing, that's enough. Because you see, that person who takes that bribe, right? If he knows he'll get caught by MNCC, do you think he'll take or not?
Yeah.
No, of course not.
Right.
Definitely not.
So why is that sense that, oh, I'm not taking now, but it's okay lah. Allah punish me on day of judgment. What? Are you kidding me? Are you kidding
That's
me?
even worse.
Right, exactly.
Oh,
Even
So
worse.
if you have true iman, are you really going to do that or not? So this is the thing that we need to drill. Number one thing, right? And it's subhanallah, like this thing, right? There's one hadith, there's one statement that always brings like chills down my spine. Umar al-Khattab, when he was the Amirul Mu'minin, right? He was on the mimbar, and then he made this declaration, and he says, if a sheep in Iraq on the bank of Euphrates, if he would die because I didn't fix the road, it was my responsibility. I expect Allah to question me on the day of judgment because I didn't do my responsibility. What?
Subhanallah.
This is
Imagine
Omar in
if-
Medina, yeah? That's in
Imagine
Iraq,
if
yeah?
all the Muslim
Mashallah.
think like this, right?
Yeah, imagine if every single Muslim thinks like this.
We always
Subhanallah.
say, "Oh, you see, our leader don't think like this. What about us?"
That's right.
Ah,
We
there
always
you go,
about
right?
corruption and bribery,
Yeah.
integrity. Always focused on leaders.
There
What about
you
us?
go.
Mashallah.
Yeah.
Mashallah.
Yeah.
Can I share something? I think this hadith is really direct. Yeah, I have not seen a more direct hadith about someone who abused power. Some men abuse Allah's property, which is public money and funds. They will go to hell on the day of resurrection. Direct. Whoever abused
Just like that.
just like that.
Right.
And another one.
Wow.
Paradise is forbidden for any person in authority who dies while he is dishonest in his dealings under his rule.
Subhanallah.
Direct. This is direct. I couldn't find it. there's no way.
Call a spade a spade.
No way around it.
Yeah.
You get the sense of the
subhanallah.
gravity of the gravity of the responsibility when you are elected to a position. Some people think that is like, oh wow, this is a privilege, but actually the responsibility is much more, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, subhanallah. And
Not just for leaders. It's
not just for leaders.
Not just for
exactly.
leaders. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what?
Just to
If I can.
also,
Okay.
I just have one
before-
point only for Brother Faisal's point just now. You know that the person who thinks that they can get away from this in the dunya, actually, if that person was caught in this dunya, perhaps this is also a mercy from Allah that he got caught in this dunya. You know why?
Subhanallah.
Because it would have been already a punishment for him in this dunya, and perhaps from that results a reflection and a change in that person, that he becomes a better Muslim, and he rectifies his deeds, and perhaps he becomes one of the people of Jannah. But if Allah didn't punish him in the dunya and he didn't get caught by the MACC or corruption body, he thinks that is he got away with it. But he will find out in the akhirah. So that is even worse. And that is what you call istidraj. Allah appears to increase you you appear to be good thing for you, but actually it's a bad thing for you. So subhanAllah, may Allah protect us from this. And subhanAllah, this is something very profound, I think, and we should all reflect on this. Yes, Akhi.
Sorry.
Shami was in the queue.
This is great. Do not cut this out from the podcast, inshallah. So anyway, I just want to add something. When the brother Aziz, he said about, when they start to question, like like leaders, right? How come we're not leaders or something like this, right? So um there is an author by Amash. He's one of the Salaf. He's one of the righteous predecessors. When someone asked him, right, he asked him, "Oh Amash," he said, when Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, He said in the Quran in Surah Al-An'am, وَكَذَلِكَ نُوَلِّي بَعْضَ الظَّالِمِينَ بَعْضًا بِمَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. Right? It means, thus we appoint some oppressed as allies of one another because of what they have earned. Right? What have you heard, O Amash, being said about it? So Al-Amash, he said, what? I heard them say, meaning those who came before him, meaning his teachers, right? I heard them say, if the people become corrupt, the worst of them will be appointed rulers over them. So it starts from the
Wow, there you go.
followers, right?
MashaAllah.
It doesn't start from the ruler.
That's
It
good.
starts from us. Right? So
Yes.
if you are corrupt, then
Yeah.
there it is. That's your answer.
Yes.
Waliyadu billah. May Allah protect
That's
us
a good
all.
one.
May Allah
Yeah.
protect us all.
Subhanallah.
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 Yeah, one thing relating back to the Day of Judgment, which Riza said, that's good. We're building on the points, right? So I remember when the people were narrating the story about how that person got caught, that person who was caught taking bribes, taking bribes. So the way that the MACC caught him was that they forced him to wear the MACC uniform. You know what that means? The orange jumper suit, right?
Yeah.
Oof.
The
The
very
jail
obvious,
uniform.
exactly. It's like a jail uniform, right? That
Yeah,
very
yeah.
very obvious uniform that screams, "I am a convict," that kind of thing, right? They
Yeah.
actually tell this guy to go to the office, to his tower office. So go and bring escort them to his workstation. So can you imagine now
Wow.
you walk there with all your colleagues looking at you, and with that orange jumper suit, go up the lift, people look at you, what's going on,
The mall, going through the mall.
going through the mall, yeah, if you know where our office is, right? Yeah. Yeah, subhanAllah. Can you imagine the humiliation of that? Like you walk all those
Oh.
steps and people, hey, who's that? Who's that? Who's that? And then people start mentioning names, right? Eventually you hit the guy who this is humiliating, right? It doesn't stop there, by the way. If you go to MACC website, I actually just looked it up just before this podcast. You go to the MACC website, the Malaysian Anti-Corruption Commission, there's one link called Corruption Offenders Database. In that
Oh.
part, you can see all of the pictures of everyone who's been caught by MACC. You'll see their full names, their partial IC numbers, and photographs. And okay, in case you're wondering, yes, our ex-Prime Minister is there also.
Wow.
Yeah, no
Subhanallah.
kidding. These guys are not
That's
kidding.
right.
It's very humiliating, right? Think about it, right? You you want people want to be famous, right? You're famous going on MACC website and this is humiliating, right? But you know what people were telling me all this, right? You know what ayah I cannot get out from my head? One ayah from Surah Fusilat. Allah says, "Wala adabul akhirati akhza." Wow, this is scary, man. Allah says the torment, the punishment of the akhirah is even more humiliating. So this is like, this is heavy, man. Like
Just
that's already very
digest that.
bad. Yes,
Subhanallah.
exactly. Let it sink in, right? This is humiliating, right? Website, your name, your face, your children will see, your grandchildren will see. But on the Day of Judgment, it will be even more humiliating. So if you actually have iman of Day of Judgment, this is a big no-no, man. You do not want to get anywhere near this punishment, man. Subhanallah. So yeah, it comes back to that sense of accountability, right? If you have this, prioritize this first. This is what you need to educate your children first, right? Then that's where you'll be more preventive in making sure they do the right thing, even when no one's watching. That's the symptom of holding on to the principles.
MashaAllah. And I think also just to add to that, all of this accountability and responsibility, it all boils down to one simple concept that everyone can apply in their lives. It's taqwa of Allah. This is the single most concept that can prevent you from going into all this. And perhaps one easy way that perhaps if we don't know how to inculcate the taqwa straight away, firstly, you want to start on that, is to learn about Allah, learn about Allah's perfect names and attributes. And then this is one of the ways to increase our iman. And it's in the hope that when you know more about our Creator, about Allah, then you know what you are dealing, what is your situation, for example. So this is a perfect way to start. Perhaps if anyone is asking out there, where do I begin, right? So learn about Allah. It comes back to education, like the brothers mentioned before. So something to add there, inshallah.
And part of education also, you need to know what are the doors that leads to corruption and integrity and bribery. Yeah.
Sahih.
And in corruption, one of the biggest door is gift and hospitality. This is one of the biggest doors. Family relationship is also one of the biggest doors to it. You know those doors. Keep it shut. Keep it professional. Do not go into that. Yeah. So these are the shubhat. These are the doubtful path that can lead you to bigger problems. And know where are those. And this is not pointless. To know all these roads is not pointless. This is part of your deeds to seek halal sustenance. And that's the command of Allah. Allah commanded all believers to seek halal sustenance. So if you do it, that's an amal salih for you. And the best way to do something is through knowledge. Not just knowledge from the religious point of view, but also from the worldly point of view. And for this case, if you need to get help, know where to get help. If your company has legal advisors, utilize them. If not, you can go to MCC hotline to get more information. Yep. Utilize those. Yeah.
MashaAllah. Yeah, because there's so many gray areas that we deal with in our lives. So it's important to take the safer route and know about those things. Take the safer route all the time. Protect yourselves at all times against what can lead you to corruption and reducing your integrity. So subhanallah, it's an amazing discussion, mashallah, brothers, and may Allah allow us to...
I have quite a few points actually, but I understand we want to keep this short, but I just want to give a teaser so people come back.
Okay.
I actually have quite a big section about how we're going to teach our integrity to our children, especially honesty. And the teaser I want to give here is that many parents don't realize it, but actually sometimes the way we raise our children, the way we treat them, we're actually conditioning them subconsciously. We're training them to lie. We don't realize this. How is this so? Oh, okay. Next episode, inshallah. So yeah.
There you go.
Mashallah.
One guy.
Stay tuned.
Mashallah. Stay tuned. So mashallah, that's a good teaser. So watch out for the next episode, inshallah. And may Allah allow us to reflect and benefit on our discussion today. And may Allah give us the knowledge and the tawfiq, the ability to have integrity in every aspect of our lives, whether in front of people or in private. So with that, inshallah, we continue in another session, inshallah. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, asyhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.